speaking of Jared Goff, we're going to talk about the Rams and the Washington football team next. The Rams slashed Washington by a final score of 30-10. The Rams improved to 4-1. Washington falls to 1-4. And what a really special game this was. Alex Smith comes in for the first time since 2018. Obviously, he had a gruesome injury during that season. There was then complications with his leg post-surgery. It got infected, then almost amputated. They had to take part of his muscle from his left leg and apply it to the right, if I'm not mistaken. Just a lot of chaos happening around him. So to see him be able to come in this game after Kyle Allen gets hit pretty hard, and to actually just be able to play in the NFL was truly, truly special and really one of the best moments of 2020, all things considered. But let's talk about the Rams first. Jared Goff, 21 of 30 for 309 yards and 3 touchdowns, also threw an interception. Darrell Henderson won the Rams running back wheel for the week. 15 carries, 68 total yards, and 2 touchdowns. Robert Woods, 71 yards and a score, and Gerald Everett caught all 4 of his targets for 90 yards. Cam Akers had 9 rushes for 61 yards, and Malcolm Brown had 8 rushes for 30 yards. Again, everyone is going to be involved, but we have no idea who's going to be the lead back on a week-to-week basis. You're playing with fire if you're starting anybody on the Rams. Moving over to Washington, the quarterbacks combined for 18 of 30 for 101 yards and 1 touchdown. It was not pretty. The Rams defense was all over the Washington quarterbacks all games. Washington's offensive line was a disaster, and the Rams, I believe, finished with 6 sacks on the day. Aaron Donald had 4 of them. Best defensive player of all time. Antonio Gibson was on track to have a great game, and he really was looking good early on, especially with Kyle Allen at the helm. Before the injury, Gibson was being heavily targeted in the receiving game. Gibson's final line was 11 carries for 27 yards, 5 of 5 through the air for 24 yards. And then Terry McLaurin had a down game, and this really was just the nature of this contest. The Rams were just all over Washington on both offense and defense. McLaurin, 7 targets, 3 receptions for 26 yards. So just a few things that I want to talk about for this game. There's actually not a whole lot, all things considered. I felt like this game was pretty standard, pretty cut and dry. Jared Goff, this was a good Jared Goff game that you got, and this was actually pretty expected. At least I thought. Washington has been a bit shaky on all fronts, as I'm sure you guys know. This was a game where Goff was aligned to have a great game. If you started him, great. If you streamed him, even better. And then moving over to the running backs, just trying to figure out what this is going to look like on a week-to-week basis is just... I don't know how you can do it. I really don't. And I think what's even more frustrating, and maybe this even just falls in line with my whole take of running backs wins you championships. Maybe this was just a thought that I never fully articulated. One of the reasons why I say that running backs win you championships is because, one, there's only 32 starting running back compared to, 68, 92 wide receivers that start every single week. But even with running backs, yes, 32 start, but how many of them are actually valuable? 24, maybe, right? So that's why I like to load up on running backs early, and not only running backs, specifically workhorses, like Kenyon Drake. Obviously, Chase Edmonds is involved, but still, right, getting 18 carries a game. Kenyon Drake, Joe Mixon, Miles Sanders, Zeke, Kamara, CMC, Dalvin Cook, Saquon. Like, there are just so few workhorse running backs who are going to get all the work. And that's why running backs are so valuable. And, it's a very, very weird, especially maybe during even, this season, right? To see all the backfields that are fantasy irrelevant. The Rams backfield, yes, there are guys who are playing well. We've seen the Malcolm Brown week. We've seen the Darrell Henderson weeks. But knowing who to start on any given week is impossible. So the Rams backfield is out. The Detroit Lions backfield is an absolute mess with Adrian Peterson, Kerryon Johnson, and DeAndre Swift. The Baltimore Ravens backfield is an absolute mess. So there's 3 right there that are just a no-go. You can make the argument that we are approaching. No, I'll save that. I disagree with that. I was going to say maybe the San Francisco 49ers between McKinnon and Mostert, but I still think they each serve their own value. So I'm not too concerned about that. Entering without Saquon, the Giants backfield could have been an absolute disaster trying to decide between Devonta Freeman, Wayne Gallum, Wayne Gallman. I said Wayne Gallum. Wayne Gallman and Dion Lewis. But to actually, the Patriots running backs are an absolute nightmare now, right? Just a lot of just teams are just so committee based. And my fear, this is the long-winded way of me saying, my fear is that the committee model is going to be the future of the NFL. And the reason why is just because there are more good running backs than the NFL can actually keep up with. And I actually think it's going to be a really smart move that teams are going to roster two incredibly talented running backs. You're going to see a lot of 50-50 timeshares, and that's really just going to be a way to keep guys fresh and keep guys active. So the Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, that's going to continue to be a thing. The Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, that's going to be a thing. The Zach Moss and Devin Singletary in Buffalo, that's going to be a thing. I really think that this is going to be a trend that is going to hit every single NFL team at some point. So please enjoy the workhorse running backs while you can, because you can't end up in a situation like either of these teams, actually, now that I think about it, with both of their backfield being absolute messes. Robert Woods, another great game from him. Cooper Kupp, fine performance from him, not too concerned about that. Tyler Higbee, we actually had to talk a little bit about. This is now 3 straight games after the 3-touchdown game versus Philadelphia, where he has been almost a non-factor. It's not looking great for Higbee. Sorry, I had to yawn. I'm not willing to jump ship off Higbee, and the reason why is I really do just think that this offense is too good. This offense is too good. The tight ends are still being involved. I'm not worried about it. Not just yet. The only concerning thing is that the targets still aren't there, and I know I just said the tight ends are involved, but like between the two of them, they're still involved. So as a collective, they are. But just looking like Higbee in a game like this, only had 2 targets, 2 receptions. Like, it's not great. The week before that, 4 targets, 3 receptions. So I'm not ready to jump ship off Higbee yet, but it is something I am considering. I'm walking towards the plank to get rid of Higbee. And if you are in that spot, luckily I am not. But if you are, you need to start looking ahead at who's on your waiver wire and who you can pick up now, maybe even a week out. Just so if you have to make that decision to cut bait with Higbee next week, you already have their replacement on your roster. Moving over to Washington now, Kyle Allen and Alex Smith just got obliterated by this Rams defensive line and Aaron Donald specifically. I didn't think Kyle Allen looked awful. 9 of 13 specifically for him for 74 yards and a touchdown. So that's fine. I've watched Kyle Allen for fucking... How many games did Kyle Allen start last year? 13? No. Yeah, it would have been 13 because Cam played 2 and then Will Greer started 1. So I watched Kyle Allen for 13 games last week. I know exactly what he was, and it was actually really funny. Jordan Rodriguez, who writes for The Athletic and covers the Rams, she covered the Panthers last year, and just reading her tweets about Kyle Allen yesterday, she's like, deja vu, I've seen all this before. That was pretty funny. So Kyle Allen, you're going to get a lot of checkdowns, and that's really good for Antonio Gibson. Like, before Allen left the game, Gibson had 4 targets and 4 receptions. So I really did think, like, Antonio Gibson was on pace to have such a great game. But unfortunately, the Rams defense just obliterated Washington pretty much all game. And nothing was able to actually get rolling. McLaurin had a bust game for you, and he was really the only guy who you were confidently starting this week. And Antonio Gibson for Washington. And this is just the story of Washington every week. It's going to be you're starting Antonio Gibson. And of course, like I just want to say this. Of course, I hold out on actually starting Gibson for 4 straight weeks. Like, I would not. I've said this on here. I wasn't ready to actually go in until I saw it consistently. And then I saw 3 straight games of double-digit points. And I'm like, all right, I'm here. Let's go. And then the one week I start him, he duds. So, thanks, Washington. Appreciate you for that. And then McLaurin, you're fine. Like, this is just part of the Terry McLaurin experience, where you are just going to be in a spot where he plays for a bad football team. And this happens to bad football teams as they just get obliterated. And as a result, obviously, the wide receivers, the quarterbacks, the running backs, they're all going to take major fantasy blows. And this was just one of those weeks for Washington.